Yeah,
Hey, all you listeners out there, this is another episode of All Things 3D. Today is August 5th, 2014, and today we have some really exciting guests coming in from Indiana. And say hello to John and Steve from SeeMeCNC, two of the pioneers in the Delta Revolution. I'm Chris, your co-host, and we also have my co-host, Mike.
Oh, that's me. Hi.
Yeah, so welcome to our listeners, and welcome, John, welcome, Steve. We really thank you for coming on our program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So who's going to do most of the talking? So I'll just make sure I push to their camera.
Probably John Oley.
Okay, John, then I'll stick on you, and I'll ask the first question. Obviously, we already know your name, but if you want to go ahead and repeat it for the audio podcast, because I normally start right in on that, kind of take out some of the fluff in the beginning. So what is your name? What's your position out at CMC and your location?
All right, my name is John Olafson, and me and Steve started SeeMeCNC in 2011, and we're located in northern Indiana, just a few miles from the Michigan line.
Okay, great.
Wow.
Steve, you want to add to that, or?
Yeah, this is something where this business here used to be a machine shop for many years, and about 3 years ago, 3D printers is what we've become known as making and doing. It's all we do now.
Cool. Yeah, and as I mentioned, that I've bought several parts. In fact, I'm probably going to have enough parts from SeeMeCNC to make my own. But normally, what I've been doing is buying parts and adding them to all my other 3D printers. And you're probably wondering, well, why didn't you just buy ours to begin with? Okay, I'll say that my bad. So maybe in the future.
Well, there's people that will make their machine before they'll buy one. So you're one of those people, I think. So it's understandable.
Or I buy a used one and it doesn't work quite right, and then I have to find better parts. Hence, SeeMeCNC.
Yep.
Yeah, and just so you know, I think it was you, Steve, that I actually walked out to the parking lot and gave you my cash and did a cash deal for mine. But here's my kit I bought.
From the trunk?
Well,
No, they had a trailer full of these things. And I tell you, this printer has been a savior for me. I do this professionally. I do FDM prototyping professionally, and sometimes, my Stratasys equipment will, from time to time fail or go down, and so I'm just dead in the water, because I have one production machine because I just started about 2 years ago, and but that Delta printer, man, when I got that thing up and running, it just blows me away for the amount of money and the amount of learning that you go through. Even if you at the end of the day ended up with something and that skunked you and it didn't really even work right, just the learning alone that you go through building one of these machines is just, that's worth it in itself.
Yep.
And that's what a lot of people suggest. So let's move on to the next question. So when did SeeMeCNC start, and what was your first product? Who wants to grab that one?
Sure. Back in July, August, somewhere around there of 2011, Steve came out to the shop and we were talking about other projects we wanted to do, and he said, hey, well, how about a 3D printer? We should make a 3D printer. And I didn't even know what they were at the time. And so that's when I first got involved with the RepRap forums and started learning about what the 3D printing was. And our first machine was actually the H1, and we did an Indiegogo campaign. It finished up in December 2011, and I think we had around 24,000 in sales off of our Indiegogo campaign. And that kind of launched us into the DIY and the maker style of 3D printers.
Very cool, very cool. Steve, you want to add to that, or?
That's pretty much how it happened. I out of school back in the early 90s, I seen professional stereolithography machines, and I was, by the late 90s, I was offered a professional machine. You want to add this to your machine shop. It was not, it was pricey, and I didn't want to do it. Well, it wasn't until the machine shop thing slowed down in kind of the early 2000s when I came across, I did come across the RepRap, but at the time, unlike John and his active role in the community, I really didn't know what I was looking at, but it was the Darwin, and that threaded rod thing. It just looks cool. It was fun, and so years went by. I just did the regular business thing, and then John pretty well summed it up how he started in 2011.
Pretty cool. Yeah. So, well, let's kind of move on to the next question. Your website kind of shows that you're well, let's see. I guess I shouldn't do that. There we go. I was actually going to bring up your Indiegogo, which I had up, but I'll talk first and then head to it. But I obviously, because I bought a lot of parts from you, you're kind of a one-stop shop, not only to buy the 3D printers that you offer, but a lot of the parts that go along with it, which I thought was a little unique, and actually saved my butt because you provided 2-day, and then being in Indiana or Continental, that saved about a week's worth of time that I would have been waiting to get my Maker Gear M2 up and running, and that's a long story on how the Rambo fried, but I'll leave that for another day. But you had one, and it was one of the latest. Actually, it was right before. I don't remember what version they're on now, but essentially it was right before they came out with a new one. But you had one, and I just popped it in there and didn't wait for it, and haven't looked back. So I really appreciate you guys being out there from that perspective. So what kind of puts you into the thought process of not only offering the machines, but like you said, being more of a one-stop place for people to go to get, like I said in the text that I sent you, machines, parts, education, everything. What was the motivation behind that?
So originally starting out, we had the H1, and then we got into the Delta printers, and all along the way, we grew up out of the RepRap community and a lot of the other open source projects. And so part of our roots were in the guys that just like to buy individual parts, pieces, bearings, nuts, bolts, and roll their own. Another reason that we kept a lot of the parts of our own machines on the website available individually is supporting all of the machines. We try and make sure everything we make is backwards compatible as much as possible, or upgradable to the older machines, but also so that guys can take some of what we've done as an open source hardware manufacturer and take our parts and components, if they don't have the means to build them how we do, and use them in their own designs.
Well, I commend you for that. Like I said, it saved my butt, and I also, again, you're probably going to look at me and slap your foreheads and say, well, you should have gotten ours. But I thought the Castle Clear, I kind of was enamored with its design, but it left a little bit to be desired, especially in the Scruder. So I decided to go with, I can't remember the name of it, but your Easy Struder, I think is the name. And haven't looked back. Like it, love it. So I had to modify it a little bit. What's kind of funny is that it's kind of reversed in the way that it feeds filament. So I had to go in and switch the connector on the Rambo itself, and now it looks great. So simple fix, and haven't looked back. Actually it's funny, little things like that that are done with injection molded plastic make a big difference sometimes, and even though we 3D print stuff, it's sometimes not the same. So I really appreciate you taking the time, or however you sourced it, to put it out there for people like myself. On that question, and I'm sorry I'm not moving on to the next question, are you going to make a metal version? I know there's another company, and I plan to bring it up this Friday in our 3D in review. But I was thinking it's almost similar in design, and I'm just wondering if you were going to make a full metal body version of your Easy Struder.
I don't know that we'll necessarily make one anytime soon. Steve did a lot of work on the Easy Struder, and to answer that question, yeah, he does all the design work on our injection molded stuff. So all of the parts that are on our machine are done in-house, short of some electronics, obviously, bolts and bearings, things like that. But I think he went through 3 or 4 revisions on the Easy Struder, and we were just joking the other day how I think the first one I said, that's good enough, let's go, we got stuff to do, and he kept going back, no, not quite yet, not quite yet. So I think it earned its name. It's a lot easier than most of them out there.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's a really good design, but Steve, maybe you can tell us that maybe an all-metal version isn't worth it.
I think you got to look at what's necessary and what isn't, and if, of course, John and I are always talking about, well, what's the market looking for? You go so far with a certain design, and based on how many people really want to give up the money for it. You can't it is very hard to machine all those parts out of metal and still sell it in the ballpark of what we can produce with the injection molding. The parts like the Easy Extruder, quite honestly, we service almost none of them, so parts are not breaking. We don't have problems like that. It's just been an extremely reliable product.
Yeah, again, Steve, hats off. I looked at the design, and I do a little design work myself, and I wouldn't say it's simple, but it's a very clean, organized, and streamlined component. And as you said, there's very few parts to go wrong, and it just seems to work. So again, I can.
Yeah, and
thanks.
And one of the things that I did on mine is you guys are obviously friends with, or I think friends with the people from, or even brothers with somebody over at Trick Laser, correct?
Yeah, he's one of our friends from the makerspace here in town.
Yeah, so I've actually upgraded, done a couple before the V2 Rostock Max came out. Mm-hmm. There were some upgrades that he had, and it just brings the Easy Extruder kind of up and puts the spool holder on top, which I think you guys have addressed in the V2.
Yeah.
You know, both those things. But the I definitely would recommend Trick Laser.
Point your camera at it, Chris.
Yeah. There, I can show it.
Yeah, they're kind of like our aftermarket parts guys. They make a lot of carbon fiber goodies and doodads and some brackets and different special things, and they'll do special custom one-off parts that obviously we just don't have the time for.
Yeah, that, you know, again, it's really great the way that you've kind of embraced the open source market and give back to it, and obviously they're giving back to you. So
yeah,
I think we all appreciate that. So let's kind
of
along
those lines, you guys carry printers, and they're mostly based on the Delta design. So so tell us, why Delta?
They look pretty cool, don't they? A couple of the reasons, other than the wow factor, obviously, is when you think of 3D printing, when you walk through a crowd of people that have never seen a 3D printer before, and you show them one of the, we'll call it the box printers. You know, everybody's making a box these days, have been for a while. When your first instinct when you see it is, oh, what does that do? When you look at a Delta printer, though, you know, with the way the carriages are moving and all the arms are moving, it gives you that futuristic. They don't quite understand what's going on. There's something outside of their grasp, and so it really gets their gears turning. So it makes you think more along the lines of 3D printing is something kind of futuristic and unique that's up and coming technology. So it fits with what people think. One of the other things, though, is it's also, from a manufacturing standpoint, having the Delta design makes it a little easier to get good, repeatable quality parts out, because you have 3 unique mechanisms, or 3 similar mechanisms instead of 3 unique mechanisms for each moving axis.
Yeah, and
definitely.
And I found that it's kind of a go-to prototype machine for me as well. And even though, like I said, using a Castle Clear, it's got enough of your opponents in it. I don't know what we'd call it, the Castle SeeMeCNC hybrid or something like that.
Yeah, so the father of the Delta movement is this gentleman by the name of Johann Roschel. I hope I'm saying his last name correctly.
Roschel.
And Roschel. And he is, you know, he works for Google as his day job, but then and he lives in Seattle, correct?
Yes.
He's from Seattle, and he's basically the one that originally wrote this software and kind of helped you guys in the beginning get your first Delta off the ground, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. And so, what is your relationship with Johann? Are you still in contact? Is he still involved with these printers?
Yeah. So he's got the Google community for Delta robots, the 3D printing Delta robots, and that's another great resource for all things Delta related in 3D printing and other projects like laser cutting and just about anything you can do with a moving platform. So early on, when I was looking around on RepRap and we were looking for another machine to do, I've been watching him and showed it to Steve, and I think it was maybe January, February, right after he first came up with the idea of a Delta 3D printer. And we both looked at it, and even we went, I don't know what's going on there. That's cool, but is it really going to work? And we were kind of kicking around ideas, different stuff, and then he started printing with his around March, April, I think. And we kind of looked at it again, and Steve started, his engineering gears started turning, and I got a hold of Johan and said, hey, we're doing another printer here this summer, and we'd like to do a Delta bot, and wanted to collaborate a little bit. And he was, more or less, he just wanted to develop. He just wanted to play around and design parts and things. Wasn't so interested in forming a business or building kits or selling kits, the hard part of it. And so he kind of gave us his blessing and said, yeah, no problem. And we've met up with him at a couple different the maker fairs and some other 3D printing shows, and he's a pretty good guy. And yeah, we still stay in touch.
Seems like a real smart guy, contributing to the open source movement, kind of like you guys are. So amen to you guys, amen to Johan.
Oh yeah, definitely. He is definitely one to look up to when it comes to the sharing of all his ideas. He won't hold anything back.
So let's move on to something else that that just came up in the news last week, and we kind of brought it up on our 3D in Review last Friday. And you've kind of taken this Delta to a new extreme level, can we say? This kind of blew us both away. A 15-foot tall Delta printer.
It's actually 16 foot 2 inches tall, but that's Steve's baby there, so he can tell you more on that one.
Okay, Steve. Do you want me to just go ahead and keep going through it, or do you have some image? Can you see what we're showing here? So, what is this thing made out of? And
well, this is some. It's built from some 3-inch. Since we're in America here, so into inches. It's 3-inch by 3-inch T-slot aluminum. And we have some 6061 aircraft grade aluminum joining plates. This is I posted back in September on our forum about the Partdaddy. I go by the nickname Partdaddy, by the way. Just that means king of parts. There's a story there too. But
I can imagine.
On the on the large Delta,
Partdaddy. I don't know. Okay.
Designing this thing in SolidWorks was it's a solid week and a half of my time, and then every single person in the shop had a hand in it. Even a few people stopped by, did something. Brent Rubble, he was out here, kind of did an internship with us for the week, and he did a little bit of wiring on it. I'm not trying to be in any competition with anything. It was back in September last year, there were guys on the forum and people talking on the internet about how scalable this Delta machine is.
Yeah, Chris and I talked about that as well.
It's really beautiful because you, like John was saying earlier, you have 3 identical towers and linear motion systems, not 3 different ones. So it lends itself really well to the production environment, a manufacturing facility like us. And we were, JJ and I were out in Kansas City at a maker fair, and Dale Doherty approached me and asked about it because I might have said something a few months earlier. And I said, well, I'll have it at Detroit. So we did take it up there. A technical problem kept us from running the extruder. Ole here is the race car driver as far as tuning our machines and getting the software and things perfect and accelerations and all that good stuff. So he got it going up at Detroit, but the extruder, we couldn't get the screw to rotate for more than 30 seconds. And again, John solved that problem back here, where we got to put the hot end assembly back together. I could probably walk out there in the shop. Tell me if it's too noisy. But it wasn't to be in competition or say, oh, I make the largest one or anything like that. It was to really have fun, show people what's possible.
Yeah,
and
but do you hold the world's record now?
I don't know. I really don't keep up with it. Other people started this competition. I'm not. I like performance.
I mean,
I was doing 1.5 meter. My goal was 1.5 meter. I have some triple extrusion rails that I was working on a design. But then I thought to myself, what do I need to print? Like, what am I going to print on this thing, and how practical is it to have this thing taking up all this space? Yeah. So, but I'm sure that problem arises for other people all the time. It's just I don't have that problem yet, you know. So, but as soon as somebody says, "Hey, I need a part that's like as big as my car," then I'm going to need this Partdaddy machine. You know what I'm saying?
That looks like part of a rocket or something.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's you never know.
Yeah.
So what kind of parts are you thinking you're going to build yourself? We're going to 3D scan you, Steve,
exactly.
and then
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if people want another one of me, but I think a statue is definitely in the works. You know, I'd like to do that. Fradini with the Scanorama out there on Coney Island in New York. He's scanned John's wife and my wife, and he's like, "I'll send you the full-size files," and we thought that'd be pretty cool. So
now that would be really cool.
Statues. I'd like a chair. You know, something practical. What would you want to do with this thing? Well, you could print a chair or a couch. It's about 4 foot diameter by almost 12 feet tall build area. So as soon as what the camera's looking at there is the extruder for it.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you see it. There's the screw is down there, so it takes pellets.
Okay, yeah, that's what I read.
And there's the hot end.
Okay, now the nozzle on this thing obviously isn't in your point. This is what, millimeters in diameter?
Yeah, this thing here is the nozzle. That is approximately 4 millimeter diameter, and there's another one that John said we ought to try is the 6 millimeter.
Oh,
so, pending a few health issues, hopefully we'll make this thing go before long. But in the meantime, it's going to be hanging probably for another couple weeks.
So, what are the hoses for? The blue hoses? Is that ventilation?
The blue hoses are they have electrical.
Okay.
So here we have an LED light, which you can see with my hand is a pretty decent size.
Yeah, it sure is.
We have a control for the light. We have some thermistor feedback, 2 zones.
So what's the purpose of the lights?
The light is so you can see what you're doing. We got a clear view of the extrusion. This is I think we didn't touch on what are the advantages of the Delta. My favorite aspect of a Delta personally is the fact that your print is stationary, and this large format demonstrates that you can take and scale this machine up. You're going to print a large part. We don't have to move the part around. Most all other printers, you have to either move the part up or down or back and forth. And when you get into a part 6 feet tall, then you're going to have a problems keeping that part in one place, together without falling over.
Right. Yeah. So it's another good advantage. And might I add yet another advantage that I see from a machine building for business type thing, approach. I would say the Delta kind of skirts a little bit of the patent issues, maybe. So.
We try to respect all intellectual property. We're just a tiny little company, honestly, compared to the big dogs. We're having fun. We certainly try to respect the IP that's out there. I think it's a little. That's a whole other show, I think. But in my opinion, it kind of slows things down as fast as technology is moving.
Yeah. I mean, but what I'm saying is the Delta kind of is different enough that really, if somebody did have a qualm with you, I mean, Johan, who has open sourced this freely, open source licensed all of his projects, really it kind of skirts a lot of the patents that like either Stratasys has because it's not a Cartesian, right? Yep. So they don't have Delta printers. They didn't invent the Delta printer. They didn't invent the Delta bot. So really, their patents are kind of obsolete in my eyes.
Patents come down to the words that are in them, and some of the legal stuff is really ambiguous and confusing to read, and that's how they want it. But
Yep, that's intentional.
it's we're not trying to skirt patents or do anything like that. We're trying to, okay, if we know about something, we try not to infringe on it. And honestly, if there is a problem, one of these other companies or somebody should be contacting us, and I don't think there is. We don't.
Right.
We try to, again, we try to respect what's already done and out there, and for the most part, build upon the open source things that are out there and put them back, but respect the IP that's in place already.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Sure.
Is that a tablet I see there? What are you running? A
That's
Surface?
That's
That's the
Microsoft Surface
right
Pro.
there.
Is that the Surface Pro 3?
No, it's last year's model,
Okay,
and
so
it has
the
it has the true USB port. So John Oley has got it set up to run the Rambo control board. I walk around here.
That's the direction I've gone as well. They make, well, they're still a little pricey, but they do make very slim controllers that have everything in them. So
Wow, look at that.
so those are
Very
some,
cool.
What do we have there? Some relays?
Some solid state relays right here.
Yep, that's what
Yeah.
And here's the Rambo.
Okay.
And then over here we have some amp drivers to drive the NEMA 34 size steppers.
I was wondering what that thing is. How many of those NEMAs do you have?
There's 4. We have an XYZ in the stepper for
Okay,
the
what's the-
extruder.
Is that a transformer off in the right-hand corner?
It's a 72 volt DC power supply that powers the large motors. It's very simple. It's just pull the step direction and enable pin signals off the Rambo and run them over to the larger amps.
Cool. Very cool.
I think that I don't know if you guys were going to ask John questions. That we have the DropLit,
Yep,
which
I
is a
plan
kit
to.
that's got to come out.
Yeah, we're going to move to that right now. So, thank you, Steve, and I really appreciate getting the Partdaddy overview. And it looks like we got a few viewers in there, so hopefully they got a nice eyeful as well. So I'm going to move over to John, and yeah, let's move right into something a little smaller and unique in itself, and that's and I'll go to Chris, who's got it up on his screen, the DropLit, which is a do-it-yourself SLA, which seems to be the big thing right now. They're popping up everywhere, and we've actually had a few inventors, creators on our interview series, just like this one. I think we've done 4 or 5 of them now, by Chris, right? And now you guys got one, and it's obviously different. And I posed some questions to you guys on. Well, let's go with the main one. Why did you guys choose the blue door? I mean, all of us are scratching our heads. That's so close to the UV spectrum. Could that be a problem, or did you guys figure something out about that?
Oh, well, it probably draws back to a lot of our what does it really need to do thing. The DropLit, I'll swing around here and try and move it into the camera frame a little more. A lot of the other printers you see out there, they're big, huge acrylic or polycarbonate enclosures, and they have the entire machine or the operating area is open to any UV light that's going to come in. And the first misconception is most people think the orange is to keep the UV light in or to keep your eyes safe from the machine, and it's actually the opposite. It's to keep light from getting into the machine.
That's correct.
So we have a pretty small window here. It doesn't allow much light in. Most of it is our laser cut melamine, same thing that we've done on all of our laser cut kits so far. And the bottom, where the blue acrylic is, it doesn't actually, this is all below the resin vat, so it doesn't matter down there so much.
So that's for appearance.
Right. And then also, we're keeping a pretty small scale, so there's just a small 100 millimeter round by 15 millimeter deep build vat, and so that doesn't allow you to store much resin in the printer itself. And we've ran for days without having any problems with it curing or setting the resin that's in the vat.
Yeah, and that's what I speculated. You had a small window, plus being blue, it also retards a lot of the standard light as well because it appears a little darker. So it gives it a unique. So yeah, that was kind of the direction I thought you were going with it. And
Yeah, actually, the blue color, that was just that's our SeeMe blue acrylic that we've used on like our ORION printers, and we put as little engineering effort as possible into deciding the acrylic. Actually, it was more of a, oh, that looks really cool. We're going to go with that. Will it work? And we tested it, and yeah, it works just fine.
Yeah, and it makes sense. So yes, it does make it unique, and as I said, I was scratching my head, but after I looked at how much visibility you had, as well as the tint seems a little darker than most of them, I think that would work really well. And I did look at some of your others. I'm thinking, well, maybe blue is a predominant color, and as you indicated, it is. So yeah, it's neat that you kept it unique in that fashion. Okay, well, on to some other things.
Sure.
And I heard it, but I guess I really want to take it as from the horse's mouth. Essentially, your track system is unique. So, kind of tell us the direction and the reason you went in that direction, and maybe a little overview of the whole process of your DropLit.
Okay. The track, what we're using for the Z stage, we call it, is the same 1-inch aluminum extrusion. And we're using the same theory behind the cheapskate mechanism, which we first developed, or Steve actually came up with on our original Rostock Max. We scaled the bearings down and the CNC machine covers. Because a smaller bearing, there's less run out in the inner to outer races, so it's a lot tighter tolerances. And we've had the indicator on it in both the X plane and the Z plane, and we've been repeating 5 microns, so a couple people, were kind of skeptical whether or not it had the precision to stand up with the resin-based photopolymer style printing, and we haven't had any problems with it so far.
Okay. How many prints have you done with it?
Got about 20 or so prints on this machine here. We had not a lot of time to get it ready either. We were trying to finish up the big Partdaddy and this kind of parallel the week before Detroit Maker Faire, so both of them suffered slightly because of it.
And you decided not to crowdfund this project.
Nope. We decided that, so the DropLit came to be basically for the last year. I've been talking with my friend Johnny that runs Ultimate Machine down there about doing a little board, just a couple drivers on it, real simple board. He makes the best electronics out there. Nobody can stand up with his quality. We don't have any problems with electronics. And so I had been bugging him about making just a 2-axis driver board, something that we could play around with, do a different machine, do a resin printer, do a laser. And I think last year or earlier this year at our Midwest Rep Rap Festival we host, I started getting more serious about it. And about the same time, there was a few of the Rep Rap guys and a few other guys on the outside of the community that started their crowdfunded projects for their SLA printers or their resin printers. And boy, I can't think of one outside of the big one, the $3 million Form Labs Kickstarter. All those other guys, though, their printers just aren't available still.
And that's that's very true, John. And actually, it seems to be the case with a lot of Kickstarter printers. They take a long time to get out there, and it's great to see people just say, "Hey, come pre-order it," and the next thing you know, in a month or two, you've got it. So, hats off to you guys for moving in that direction. As with many DLP 3D printers, the reason they're 3D printer or DLP is because they use a DLP projector.
Yep.
The one that you identify in your specification is a 1024 by 768, is that correct?
Yeah, it's a native resolution.
Native resolution. And I've noticed a lot of people promoting both either 1080p, which is 1920 by 1080, or 1280 by 720. Is there a reason that you chose this particular one, or would there be advantages to going to a higher definition DLP projector?
In my experience so far, desktop DIY kind of maker level resin printing is all pretty much in its infancy. Just like extrusion-based printing was 6, 7, 8 years ago. I've printed, of the 20 or so things I've made with it, I can't tell a difference between the 1024 by 768 native versus a 1080p projector. What I can tell you is it's about 3 times the price to get the 1080 projector.
Yeah, unless you pull it out and use it for movies. But
yeah, because we're broadcasting that image on such a small area, I mean, you're really splitting hairs at that point. Obviously, the better projector you have, the more theoretical resolution you're going to get and the finer the details can. But there's so many other factors there that all of us are just learning about anyways, beginning in the resin desktop printing,
Yeah,
that
I
I don't think it's necessary.
I had a B9 creator for several months, and I experimented with it. And one of the things I noticed right, and I also have a Form 1, one of the more predominant things that I noticed right away was in order to get the higher resolutions, you lost your volume size. It would actually shrink. And I'm thinking that's where a 1080p would come in handy, is that you would still continue to have the same resolution, but you could use a larger builder. So that's one of the reasons I'm moving in that direction with the DLP, and I think that's also why B9 Creator has also moved in that same direction. It's not necessary, as you said, you're not going to gain any more resolution, but it's in order to compete with the volume size of a Form 1, which is still the kind of the one to beat as far as the SLA. But as you said, and we'll get to that in a moment, obviously your particular model is what, 1/3 to what, maybe 1/4 the price of a Form 1?
Well, our printer...
That was a sneaky way for me to get in. What are you going to charge for
that? I know what I see what you did there. So we're trying to keep the printer at $399 or less as a kit. Now, that does not include the projector. As you know, another way to pay homage to the DIY crowd is we're going to give guys a kit for a really good price. They are able to source their own projector because a lot of people may have one, especially, you know, the techie types that are into this stuff and electronics. Why buy another projector if you have one you can already use? Or it gives you the ability, if you want to go after that ultra fine resolution and you want to spend another $1,000 on a projector, go for it. The one that I've been developing with is a $300 projector.
Is it an Acer?
It is, yes, a P1283.
That seems around like a popular one.
Yeah,
that's the one I have on mine.
You know, some of the other projects, that was another thing. A lot of the other guys out there, I noticed, were developing on obsolete hardware with linear motion or projectors or things that are obsolete that you can only find on places like Alibaba or AliExpress. So, you know, when we think about coming out with a new design or a new concept, we look forward, not so much backwards, as to, is this thing going to be available? Will we be able to support it? So that's kind of part of the hold up in getting the development finished off on it, is making sure that everything that we do, we're going to be able to keep doing, you know, 1 machine, 10 machines, 1,000 machines, whatever it is from now.
Well, that's really obviously a good idea if anybody who's in this business. So the tray that you're using, it kind of looks like a Petri dish. Is it something like that, or a tray?
The one that's in here? Yeah. It's a glass Petri. We've been shopping around trying to get some different glass suppliers to get a little flatter bottom. One of the common problems with most of the inexpensive laboratory Petri dishes is the bottom has a ripple effect to it, which that can then project onto your print. So we may end up going with a laser cut acrylic vat just to keep the clarity down, you know, so we don't have to worry about the ripples in the glass.
So what do you do for surface sticking? As you're probably aware of, adhesion is a problem, and a lot of people have different ways of solving it. Some of them use what is it called, Sylar or something, the solar.
CellGuard.
CellGuard.
Or there's SillGuard, I think, is a trade name for a trademark name.
Do you use something like that as well, or do you?
Just use we're using an optically clear silicone or UV transparent silicone coating on the bottom of it. So the kits are going to go out with a vat that's already coated, and obviously links to where you can go buy your own. It's kind of expensive if you just needed to do one, but if you're going to keep printing, you're obviously going to want to have some of the consumables.
Yeah, I had to replace my Form 1 tray, which is like $50 a pop, but I also purchased the SillGuard that you mentioned on Amazon for like $30.
And you can probably do a couple of the vats for yourself.
I actually can do 4 of them, so I measured it out. So, and I've actually ruined one again. So I've been testing new materials from Made Solid. I don't know if you're working with them or Made Solids. I have been, and know Brian really well. So hopefully he's been talking to you guys, because he's got some really good resin to work with.
I got some of that on the way. I've been sticking with Maker Juice right now, just because they're kind of friends of the community, and I know those guys. So.
Okay.
Here I will pull there. So that was going to be my next question. Was what is the resin that you guys are that you guys are using, which looks like you just answered that question, which is Maker Juice Labs. So they're one of the big dogs. I just ordered some of their resin yesterday. We've had him on the show as well.
Cool. Josh, pretty good guy.
Josh is a great guy, and yeah, like I said, we've had Brian on. In fact, he was on one of our first podcasts as one of our roundtable guests.
Yeah.
So I really like him as well. You all seem very inventive, and I really like the way that this is maturing as an industry and making it affordable for people like us who don't have the money to go out and buy the Stratasys or the 3D Core SLA printers out there for $20,000. I don't know. They're exotic in price.
Yep.
So
well, Chris, you got one. You know what they cost.
Yeah. They're about as much as a Mercedes. Just even to get started with a production model for an FDM. For the SLA models, the models that are the ones to have are all no longer made. Like the Viper SLA is the one that everybody wants. If you're in the SLA market, the Viper is the one that everybody wants, but they don't even make it anymore. That's my understanding. I think they were thinking about bringing it back, so that. But everybody that does the real fine precision SLA work in the industry says the Viper is the one to have. But now there's all these open source printers that are hitting the market, and so now us common lay people can have access to high quality, stereolithography, which is really great. I'm really excited to see this. This year, I think, is going to be the year of SLA. And I think SeeMeCNC is heading in the right direction. And we just wish you the best of luck.
And with that, we'll go ahead and close out. And we're actually running a little long, so I apologize for keeping you on. But yeah, you had some exciting stuff to show us, so I know I didn't mind looking at it. And we grabbed 2 more viewers. So again, I'll pop back to John. If you've got any closing words, maybe I'll put in the show notes the links to your site. But if you have anything else to add, if you're going to be showing up somewhere at a maker fair.
Yeah, where can we see you?
All right, yeah, so some of our upcoming events, July 22nd, 3rd, I believe, is the 3D Printer World Expo, and that's in Bellevue, Washington. So I got to go back to my hometown and show off some of the cool stuff I got to bring. We won't have the Partdaddy out there. They asked, and there's just not enough time to drag that across the country.
You'll have to get an airlift transport to take that thing, right?
I'm good with that.
But Johan might be there, right?
Yeah.
Johan might show up.
Johan will be there. Terrence Tam from OpenBeam, he'll be there. That's another one of my buddies. And we all get together.
Cool,
so.
Yeah.
After that, we've got a couple little maker fairs local to us. The Fort Wayne Maker Fair is a good one. New York World's Maker Fair is coming up. Louisville Maker Fair. Let's see. I think we're going to Chattanooga. There's a few other semi-regional ones that we're going to be out at.
Cool.
Who drives the trailer?
Both of us.
We take turns.
Oh man.
We drive everywhere pretty much. So California for the Bay Area Fair and back's always fun.
I can imagine.
Don't forget to turn off overdrive.
So, Steve, you got any closing words?
Well, I just want to say thanks to everybody who supports us, and we look forward to coming out with new and exciting things in the future.
Yep. So, Chris, I let you wrap it up, and then this will be
all right. Well, thanks again to all our awesome listeners out there, and we definitely want to thank our 2 guests today, and we look forward to seeing this little DLP SLA machine coming to a maker fair near you. So thanks. Yeah. So thanks again, and we will see you next time on All Things 3D.
Yep. Thanks.